May I request everyone to settle down? We're ready to begin our next session, a very interesting panel discussion that everybody's been looking forward to. For those of who you don't, may I request people to take their conversations outside or settle down? Sorry. Yeah, now that the stage is set and the hall seems ready, I'm going to tell you about the pavilions. At our pavilions is a new vertical by Film Bazaar that has been introduced this year, Book to Box Office, one that we're excited about. And yeah, with the vertical, we felt like we had to do this panel as well. So that's where the idea of doing manuscript to screenplays came from. On our panel, we have an interesting bunch of people. Sunitha Tati, producer of Guru Films. She has been working on adaptations and will be bringing something very interesting to the floors. We have Ms. Preeti Vyas, Chief Executive Officer and President of Amar Katha. Tanya Bami, Series Head, Netflix India. Mr. Joint Secretary, Ministry of Information Broadcasting, Shri Vikram Sahay. May I please request the audience to welcome them? And Tahira will join us shortly. And last but not the least, the moderator who's going to chair this discussion and take us through the insights of what's happening in the market. Oh. May I request everyone to welcome Tahira on stage, please? Tahira Kashyap Khurrana, director, author, and writer.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. Sharing this discussion will be Sidharth Jain, chief storyteller, producer from The Story Inc. and House of Talkies. Over to you, Sidharth.
Thank you so much for being here. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for, to the panelists for taking your time for this. I'd like to first thank NFDC for this terrific and very timely initiative for setting up not only a panel, but the book to box office section this year. I think, we needed a booster shot, for the publishing world and the world of stories. So that's extremely helpful under obviously the guidance of the ministry. Also, special thanks to Leena, Varsha and team for actually making this happen at such a, in such a nice way, because I think the 2 days that I've spent here, it's a great melting pot of writers, authors, screenplay writers, filmmakers, producers. And this is really important, I think, after COVID, we were all locked up. Like I'm meeting so many people here after 2 years and 3 years. And this is how stories will happen from the conversations and the meetings. So, great. I shall start with a quick snapshot and context for the audience. Because I think largely the audience it consists of writers and authors, publishers, producers, filmmakers, people who've been part of the script lab. So we'll keep it a little more wider and just focus on stories. But specifically, I think on the book to screen, I think the status right now, if you look at what's happening in Bombay, 2018 was an inflection point. With the streamers coming in, with Netflix, Amazon, Hotstar, I think they really fueled the market, and then the TV companies getting more excited about their OTT offering. Producers were like, wow, there's a lot of opportunity, but we have no stories. Because they've always been used to the director writing a script somewhere, coming to them, and they'll pick a script, go to an actor and get it financed. So I think that changed, and we can only thank the streaming companies for looking at India as a potential market. And when that happened, in 2019, it kind of zoomed. I think it was an amazing year for all kind of projects, storytellers, creators. And then COVID happened. Suddenly the producers were all locked inside with us. Capital became scarce, theaters were shut. And it obviously, it stopped the momentum. like it happened with so many industries across the world. 2021, producers were scrambling back. Thankfully, the streaming companies were accelerating, but they didn't get enough content because we couldn't shoot enough. But they really, I think, have saved the day because the theaters were shut and the streaming companies really fueled the whole process and continued the momentum in some way or form. 22 has been tough for, I think, the book market because publishers could not publish enough. They were also trying to come back. Producers were running out of risk capital to option books and buy rights, hire writers. Kind of went through a tough time. But, I can say for myself and, as an observer, I think the tide is changing. And, post Diwali, I've seen this huge interest and momentum within the industry, looking for projects and the optimism coming back, which I think is a great sign for writers, authors, creators, filmmakers, that, I think capital is coming back to the market in some way or form. Films are releasing, so, all the money that's been stuck will come back into circulation. The big stars, though, they buy apartments and penthouses. But, in general, I think the industry is coming back in a good way. And, I think the biggest fuel for any book to go to screen is the development capital that the producer has to garner. Because it's his job to really identify a book or a story, pay some money as an advance or an option, block it, find a screenplay writer, find a director, create a Bible, create a pitch deck, script, etc. And then take that to a financer or a studio, and then kind of, move towards production. So that still remains a big pain point. And, every time there's pain, we look at the government. And I'd like to, ask Mr. Sahay this thing, that, like I was mentioning, a lot of state governments are giving subsidy if you go and shoot something there, if you produce something and release it. But I think we need to find a way collectively as an industry and as, with the help of the government, some way of fueling the development bit. Because unless we write very good stories by paying writers and taking that risk, those scripts won't go to the platforms and the, the financiers. So there needs to be something, and, I'd like your thoughts on, is there a way that the government can kind of help fuel this process?
You see, since the last 2 days, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me here. Actually, in such sessions, government should not be there. Government is best when it's invisible. And by being invisible, you can still play a promotional role.
Absolutely.
So, today, the biggest producers today are the big OTT platforms.
Right.
And they have been producing among the most brilliant stories, web series and films. Not only those who are like Netflix and Amazon, is just two of them, but we have about 50 OTT platforms across the country, including the regional ones. Now, definitely government can try to encourage these so-called producers, OTT platforms, to somehow incentivize or try to encourage these young scriptwriters to come up with good stories. And so that the risk of writing and not getting it through, that risk goes down. But for the scriptwriter, I would say, when you're talking about from book to box office or a book to a script, any of you young people would have probably watched Pathir Panchali. But you must read the book of Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay, the book which was originally written, and how Satyajit Ray had converted that book, because as a student of in school, that was our course book. So we read Pathir Panchali as a school student, and then we saw Satyajit Ray's Pathir Panchali. Similarly, if you look at the recent ones, I don't know any of you have seen a web series called Grahan, which was on Hotstar. That is based on a book by the name Chaurasi.
Correct.
Now, these are the things which you must definitely look at if trying to understand what are the do's and don'ts of converting a book into a script. What areas to expand upon, what areas to leave. And there are several examples of that sort.
Right.
But definitely, your point is well taken that government can, in a way, encourage all these platforms to encourage the young writers and pick up good stories, especially, I mean, we have one of the most outstanding collection of books, whether it's mythology or comedy or thrills, everything. We have so many books written by for instance, Pinjar. Pinjar movie was based on a book written by Amrita Pritam.
Right.
And one of the best stories we can see between two countries, how two people from two countries have come together. And so we can do that, yeah.
Absolutely. So the only thing that I just like add to this is that to consider, how there is subsidy or a financial incentive for production and shooting, there should be something for development. I'll just leave that thought for discussion further. My next question, I'm going to move to the platform, Tanya. I've had a wonderful experience working with you guys and with Netflix, and you have been leading, I think, the Book to Screen initiative in India, in Asia, in the US. I think in general, it's been, a lot of material comes from, books as being a source. So my first question to you as a studio, executive is, do you get a lot of pitches which are based on books? And also talk a bit about how important it is for you when you look at material, if there is a book as a source. So just talk about your experiences and how's that been for you?
Thanks, Sidharth. It's a lovely topic of discussion. And I think as an individual and as a platform, we absolutely love, the conversion of a book to a screenplay and then to a film or a series. So it is a preferred, if I may say so, choice that we lean in towards. And I think, I'll quote Paulo Coelho here. A book is actually like a film playing in a reader's mind. And how can we sort of enable those films that are in the mind to sort of actually come out on tape and onto our platform, and that's really the reason why we lean towards books. We've also seen tremendous success, whether it's our journey in India, which started with Sacred Games, which was a great adaptation, or an early Selection Day, which was another adaptation, or if I look towards France, Lupin was a book written in the early 1900s, and it's a series that got made 2 years ago. That's how long the written word can actually transcend, and I think that's the beauty.
Absolutely.
That a story once written down sort of finds its audience, finds its way, and transcends boundaries, whether it's of language, whether it's of territory. And I think what it really needs is a vision. Because it is like a vast open canvas for someone to come and pick up that story and actually give it the color that they want to as their vision, a creator's vision. So I would say an author's vision is important to really paint the scope, but the creator of the film or the series, their vision would be to actually give it that form which will talk to audiences, say, in over 200 countries, for example.
Right.
One of, we have a release this weekend, Khaki, the Bihar chapter. That's based on a book, Amit Loda's book.
Right.
Monica, Oh My Darling is a film we released last week.
Japanese novel.
Yes, it's a Japanese novel. Kareena Kapoor's debut on, Netflix or digital medium is a book called Devotion of Suspect X.
Yes.
That again is a Japanese novel. I can go on, but I think the point is
Absolutely,
made.
yeah.
I think it is the untold stories and the scope. Everyone's looking for that story to tell. We are all untold stories, and we are all looking for that one special story to tell. And I think a book finds its reader in that, and its audience. And similarly, I think it'll find its match in a creator to create that magic visually on screen.
Absolutely. And the show that we've also worked with you on that we can't talk about, it's also
Yes,
based on a
that's
book.
state
And
secret. We will only talk about it next
absolutely.
month.
So yeah, so I think the takeaway, for the audience is that having a book as source material helps to, get more attention, and, you've got more material with you to go to a platform. And even if, we change a lot of things, but we've got a lot to play with, right?
And actually, just to Sir's point, I think just if I give the example of a series we did last year, Ray, which was again a contemporary adaptation of Satyajit Ray's classics. So, time, space, language has really no boundaries.
Absolutely.
It is the fodder. There is so much opportunity with the kind of content boom that we are seeing, that stories and, books really provide that opportunity for people who are seeking to tell a story they connect with.
Absolutely. So I'll come back to you a bit on the process later. So actually, I was just, it's a great panel because we've got the government here, we've got the platform, we've got a producer, we've got an IP creator, publisher, and we have a writer-director. So it's a great mix, and we'll find... Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. So we are going to choose them as much as I can. I'm going to try my best. So, now I'll move to the producer. So you've been producing some really cool stuff down south. Telugu has been your thing. And, you've heard the platform that they like books. As a producer, what's been your strategy? Have you been looking at books in the past? Are you looking at them as a source material? And also, I'm curious that down south, do people use a lot of adaptation as pitches or material? Please share some insights and experiences that you've had on this.
See, first thing I want to say is that a manuscript or a novel is a writer's medium. And what you're talking here on the script is a director's medium.
Yes.
Completely different perspectives. When you take a novel which is 300 pages, you need to crush it into 120-page script.
Yeah.
And there will be a lot of conflict we will face as producers. There is a writer who will call you and just tear you apart because his pages are being ripped apart. And the director who calls and tells that I don't want my narrative to be slow.
Right.
So as a producer, often you are in between two swords.
Every day.
Yes. And coming to your question about South, historically as an industry, we have done a lot of adaptations. In Telugu, if you take some of the 60s and 70s, including Prem Nagar, which is seen also by Rajesh Khanna here, is a book.
Wow.
And the writer is Eddanapudi Sulochana Rani, who passed away recently, and she's been a phenomenal writer who always told the Cinderella story. A rich boy and a poor girl, and they always did very well. There are also amazing biopics that made it to the screen, and if you take the recent hit of Maniratnam, Ponniselvan is a historical book we all kind of vouch by, and it has been great box office success. Again, seen through the eyes of a director who knew how to take it to the screen in probably the most appropriate way.
Right.
I think a producer's job is to become that bridge in making sure that it goes to that visualization in the right format. So.
Absolutely. And have you been seeing that are generally, I think, writers who write scripts, sometimes they are pitching material. Do they use books as a source more often, or it's still kind of picking up in South?
I'm a little harsh on that. I think as a country, we are still learning how to write a script.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Most of my writers, when they send me a script, I'm afraid to send it to the West, to the agents. Because even the format of the writing, and I'm sure Netflix faces this all the time because I hear it from them, on how we write the format, we are still learning. And I think it's a great place to be because we are quick learners as a country.
Yeah.
And we pick it up very fast. And I'm waiting for that period to happen.
Right.
As a matter of fact, one of the comments I wanted to make on the development fund is I work a lot with the Korean team.
Right.
And soon after they got their freedom and one of the ministers walked into a bookstall in Korea, he saw all the books in English. They got so upset that they started to fund their writers, literally asked them to stay at home and write. And 20, 25 years later, you know where the country is right now.
Amazing.
They're probably some of the phenomenal writers, and their bookstores are filled with Korean content. There is a support, and there is a writer in all of us. We just need that little bit of survival money, and not to give in to anything else, but to be able to sit and imagine and write. And I think if we continue to do that, we have great stories to tell out of India.
Absolutely. Also, I'd just like to add to her point and reiterate that the importance of formatting any material that you share with a producer or with a studio, please keep that in mind. It's a very important job. And also, I think the way you pitch, right from your log line to your synopsis, must pay a lot of attention to those things and not feel that somebody will get it from the material.
And Sidharth, honestly, the format between the streamers is also not aligned. The way Netflix wants the format is different from the what Amazon wants and different. And from what you do in the agreement is different from what the creative director will ask you.
Yeah, but I'm going to make it easier for them. They can send in whichever format to the producer. Producer can send it to the platforms in their
So you want me to
respective
write?
formats. But yeah, I think, you know, the importance has been stressed, and I think you should keep that in mind, and I'm sure you all do. I'll come to the publisher now. Preeti, you've been given a very responsible task of handling the legacy of Amar Chitra Katha. I think most people here have read several of those comic books. And obviously, we've been waiting for years. How do you take them to screen? How does that work? Because I read about your deal with Applause, and you've made that step, a very strong partner you've got on board. Can you talk a bit about the ambition and maybe, you know, what are your plans of taking such a vast library to screen?
Thank you. Thank you for having Amar Chitra Katha on the panel. As I always say that I am the current CEO of ACK. It's a 55-year-old company.
Yeah.
And there have been many before me and, you know, touch wood, many after me as well. So, yes, it is indeed a big legacy to protect. So our founder, Mr. Anand Pai, fondly known as Uncle Pai, created this profound library.
Yeah.
In his one lifetime, it's genius that you see once in a while in every generation. Someone who could create 400-500 comics. So one part of our job is to protect that legacy, to ensure that that stays alive, that stays relevant. And that means making changes or evolving the art style. And necessarily the second part is taking that agenda forward. We don't want to live off the laurels of the past. We have to take it forward. We have to create new content. And then taking this whole library, I think the important thing for us is we made the shift, and as has been said, COVID was the chief digital transformation officer for many companies, and it was for us as well. So we made that shift from seeing ourselves as just publishers of printed books to storytellers, right, to content creators. That's what we are. And what is the way that we can reach, and we are very focused that we create stories for children. 7 to 14 is the age group we create for. It's great if adults want to read as well, but that is the age group we create for. So how do we get more children to read? How do we evolve it? In the printed version, we have, if we sell 25,000 copies, it's a great number. When it goes to digital, we straight away start seeing 2.5, 3 lakh paid reads. And if it goes to screen, that number becomes 10x again, right? So that's the journey. Amar Chitra Katha side, it is all non-fiction. So we are retelling the story of mythology, of history. So technically, we don't own that IP. The story of Ramayana belongs to every Indian. It does not belong to us. Anybody can go and retell that story. So what does Amar Chitra Katha do, right? It's about the authenticity. It's about the credibility. It's about the years of research that go into every story we put out.
Right.
What we've done with Applause is a deal on the animation side. I was blown away by their passion and Sameer's commitment to doing justice to Amar Chitra Katha. And so they're doing 2D, 3D animation. But I feel that there is so much potential even for live action. There are so many stories that we have. We have a huge catalog, and all filmmakers here, I mean, that's ready, is ready for you. And on Tinkle, of course, we have our Supandi and our Shambhu, and that's our IP. And that lends itself beautifully to the big screen as well. So yeah, we are here to support. I think the comic book is a storyboard ready. Yeah, it's paneling, it's dialogues, it's scripting, it's all done, and we are there to support and taking that forward. The ambition is really big to reach every child.
So do you keep hearing that your stories need a very large production budget?
They do. The minute you step into the world of mythology, into the world of historicals,
so is that
huge.
why animation is a way to kind of control that?
That's right, that's right. I think with animation, what's possible is you can put out a very large body of work, right? So you can tell many more stories, and that's what's exciting. The same budget you would need, like to make one film, you can do 10 stories in animation.
Right.
And that's exciting, because so many stories need to be told. It's not just the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, it's so many.
And I have just one question on the process, and then we'll dive into it later. Have the writers, obviously, over the years have changed?
Yes.
So, say a comic book written on a certain story in 1980.
Right.
And when you're printing it now, is it the same text and dialogue, or that keeps changing and evolving?
It does keep changing.
I'll
give you an example. A book called Tanaji. And Tanaji movie was released with Ajay Devgan 2 years back. And so there was a line in there which said, where the father-in-law tells his son, the grandfather tells his son, and his grandson is getting married and says, "You must be so happy that you have a fair daughter-in-law." right? Because in 1976, beauty was equated with fairness, and that was a society, right?
Yeah.
But in 2022, I don't want any girl in this country to think that if I'm not fair, I'm not beautiful, right?
Right.
So it was changing that line from you have a fair daughter-in-law to you have a wonderful daughter-in-law. It's just one word, but it changes the entire messaging and the tonality. The same thing with the way the art is evolving, right? I mean, 50 years back, they had the 24 watercolor palette. That's all they had. It was all done by hand.
Right.
Now we have all the textures. We have all the Photoshop. We have Illustrator. We are depicting skin color very differently. Dark skin goddesses, fair skin demons, all of that. Because you need to make that correction.
So the reason I was asking is because, I have almost 100 comic books from the 80s and 70s.
Right.
So they're valuable, you mean?
Yeah.
I can sell them for lakhs of rupees.
Right.
Thank
so
you
the job is much easier, of course, with new comics. We're doing,
Yeah.
I keep meeting people who say, oh, I have the entire Manuscript collection and it's bound and my parents gave it to me and my grandparents gave it to me. And I always say, you don't have the whole collection because we released a new comic last week, which you obviously don't have. So
Right.
we're producing a lot. We're doing about
Absolutely.
2,000 pages a year compared to 400 pages a year, which was being done 50 years back. So the pace of creation is more than ever before. And I would love for everyone in this room to go and see the new work we're doing and the art, the storytelling style. It still remains iconic, but it's
Yes.
evolved a lot.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
we will all
you.
line up after this at your stall to take
Sure,
copies.
sure.
Yeah, please do that. So
Yes,
talking about
absolutely.
writing, right? I'll now jump to Tahira. She's just landed and rushed from the airport. So thank you for making it in time. You've become a prolific writer during COVID. And, you've written 2 books, I think, during the lockdown process. You've also shot your film where you've written the story, the screenplay, the dialogue, you're directing it. So you've gone through all the difficulties. You've gone through development hell alone. You've gone through the whole rewrite process. So, would love to hear more about what motivates you to write every day when you were writing. And just talk about the process and some hacks if you have any.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm directly coming from the airport, hence the crinkled look. Please, crumbled look. Don't ignore my jumpsuit. But I've been hearing all the lovely discussions that we have been having, and I have, the fact that the examples that everyone quoted out here, the books, the comics, it's all, and we're talking about screenplays. The fact that you're quoting all this right now is because they have been true to their medium. I think pandemic has created so much of havoc. Social media has shortened our attention span so much that whatever we are writing, whatever we are making, we're only making it for the visual medium. But the fact that when a book is truest to its own medium, when it does justice to what it's meant to do, it achieves its glory, is when the visuals, when the Netflixes of the world, when everybody, they get attracted to it. But if a book is written with the perspective of it being made into a movie, it fails miserably. And I don't want to go into those examples, but we know many such writers who nowadays, it's a quick fix कि अपना नाम बनाना है, पैसा बनाना है, तो बुक्स में तो नहीं है उतना, मूवीज़ में है, तो ऐसा किताब लिखते हैं जैसे हमारी स्क्रीन प्ले बन सके. But it fails then.
You're so right, absolutely.
It fails then. So you need to be true to your art. You need to be true to the medium. And I feel each and every medium which is a part of the mass media is here to stay. Nobody in the world can replace Shikari Shambhu. Who can? Nobody, So, but if Shikari Shambhu now plays to the gallery of making it to the movie solely, it might just fail. But because it achieved its full glory and full potential in the medium which was it meant to be, which is why we're talking of it about right now. Similarly, the examples that Sir quoted about, all those novels that Ray had written, and then eventually they became screenplays, is also because it achieved its truest glory and potential in the medium it was meant to be. But there are only few directors, few producers who have understood this and who have adapted the screenplays. And a wonderful example that comes to my mind is of an author called Kristin Lunens. She wrote a book called Caging Skies, and it was set in World War II. It was such a remarkable book that it reached out to many countries. reached the hands of a famous director, Taika Waititi, and he made on to make Jojo Rabbit. And it got the Academy Award for the Best Adapted Screenplay. Now, if you talk to the author, did she have it in mind that it has to go on to movies? No. She did her full justice. So there are formats, there are different formats, but you need to be true to your intention.
Yes.
And then it gets picked up. And how both the mediums, they justify. Now, the director did not just follow the author's vision for the book. So for the author, it's about a boy called Johannes, and which is boy Jojo. It's a lovely, lovely movie and a lovely, lovely book. But the interpretation of the author, if you read the book, is somehow on the dark side of it. But the director took it to the humorous and witty side. The story is the same, the characters are the same, the setup is the same, yet the tonality is different. And so for the author, it's about how this little boy, 8-year-old boy, is really, really inspired by Hitler to behave and in a way that he does, a bully does, and he's inspired by the negative deeds. So it was very easy for the author, or maybe challenging in her medium, but easy for us to interpret it, where Hitler was always in the boy's head. And so it was easy to go on and writing about it. Now, what the director did was, since he could not go inside the head of the little boy, he took out the Hitler out of it, and he made him into an imaginative character, and that blew us all away, which is why what you said about the quote that you said, that every reader is a filmmaker. And that's exactly the difference between books and between movies. Books, each and every audience member is a filmmaker. Because I can easily go on to say, okay, there is this scuffle happening between a man and a woman. The man stabs the woman, and she sort of falls. She hits her head on the table, and she succumbs. And then I go on to write the chapter ahead. Now, as a reader, I just read out the scene right now to all of you. To some, the table could be a wooden one. To some, it could be a marble one where the blood is looking really red in stark contrast. Some could have a round, but I haven't gone on to describe anything.
Right.
But every reader is a filmmaker. They imagine. But as a filmmaker, when you're writing your script, or as a screenplay writer, you need to do justice, because now your art is boxed. It's based on your interpretation. It's a visual that people are going, so you have to do full justice to your setup, to your production design, to your dialogue, so that it justifies and gratifies the audience, so that you beat the audience in becoming a greater filmmaker, and it satiates them. So that's what I feel, having written books and movies. I feel there is this difference. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like for me, I think two takeaways from what she said is that, I think authors, when they're writing a book, it's a solitary process. And maybe they're working with an editor or a publisher. But I think they should be true to the format, not try to write a screenplay in the form of book, hoping that some filmmaker will read the book and think, oh, this is the film I want. No, I think what we want in a book is exactly what a book should have.
Exactly.
And be true to that format. That's, I think, one. The second takeaway is also that I think, and I'm talking from my personal experience, I'm going to jump to Tanya after this, is in the development process. We've tried to consciously keep the author away, because see, there'll be a lot of changes that we'll have to make. And no author will want his favorite character to be dead, killed, mutilated or something, or, or we add a new character in the universe. So that whole process has to be very organic to the medium of cinema and screen. So we've tried to keep that, and I think that has helped. And, at my end, if I ever take a book to a producer or a studio, I've already sensitized the author that, you'll have to let go. Your child is now going to go to a collaborative medium, and let them, bring up your child and take him somewhere. So Tanya, how's been your experience? Because you have been part of several writing rooms. You've seen all the battles, good, bad, ugly. And I mean, any insights or incidents you can think of in terms of the process of, getting this done?
No, I think Tahira makes a very valid point, and I'll use another quote. I'm forgetting who is it from. Perhaps
They all read books. Please note that.
yeah, Tarantino, I think. He says, books and films made from books are like apples and oranges. Not in any derogatory way. They're both fruit, but just in a different way. It's, I think that's really the
Absolutely, on
difference.
point.
I wouldn't really sort of call out having an author's involvement as innovative in any way
Sure.
to the development process. I think it is really about, and I'll go back to what I said previously, what is the source material being taken and envisioned as?
Right.
You know, if the vision is completely deviant from what the book is, perhaps it is better that the author takes a step back, because the author then provides that vast canvas, that really broad story that attracted a creator to it in the first place. But I'll take the example of an upcoming series that Hansal Mehta is doing for us, Scoop, for example. It's based on a book called Behind the Bars by Jigna Vora. It is her story.
Yeah.
And having her be a part of it is actually very, very helpful to
important.
the development process.
Especially real stories.
Yes, true stories. That's what I was actually driving at. True crime, true stories, experiential books. I think they provide a certain insight and a perspective and deepen the narrative. Every story, whether in a book or on screen, is really about the characters. And who better to talk to us than the characters themselves or the creator of those characters?
Absolutely.
And then I think just like books, I would say, then there is the very solitary journey of whether it is the head writer or the showrunner or the director to actually craft that into its video format. I think it is a collaboration between the author and the creators that will help sharpen the desired output, and then one vision must sort of be left behind and the other must go forward, depending on the medium it is.
Right.
But again, I think the clarity, the authenticity, the sort of the true North Star, they're important to define so that that journey is true to whichever medium that it is in.
Right. So I also have a little question, I think, on behalf of the audience. Because there's a book, right? How much of development, ideally, should a producer or a filmmaker do in terms of, before they come to pitch it to a producer or a studio? Obviously, I think you need to do more development. So is there any kind of framework that you want to suggest, give advice on?
I think, see, we work and I'll speak for us as Netflix, but
Right.
I think what we do is we work in both ways. We're happy to collaborate from the germ of an idea, but then that is a collaboration. Or we are happy to actually sort of, there are creators who really want their vision to be, present on Netflix, for their
Right.
voice to be carried across the 200 plus countries that we are present in.
Absolutely.
And in that case, I think, the clearer and sharper the vision, the easier it is for us to understand. Whether it is a book or an independent idea beyond a book, I think it is really about how fresh is the story, how true does it sort of ring to itself? Do the characters feel fresh? Do they connect with you? And really, at the end of the day, the gospel truth is, does the
Right.
story touch you, move you? Does it make you feel something?
Perfect. And I hope you noted that Preeti said the live action rights of Shikari Shampoo are available. Animation as well. See, I'm helping us out. Sunitha, I noticed that you have recently, I think, published a comic book or some kind of, you're getting into publishing.
Yes, I got into publishing.
And you worked across formats, right? You've done film, television, OTT, and now publishing.
Yes.
So just wanted to pick your brain why and how and what's your plan with that? Because you're a producer, now getting into publishing. Their livelihoods are at risk.
Yes. One of the reason I got into publishing is there are some stories that I really wanted to tell, particularly about ancient India, that I wanted to tell to the coming up generations. I'm a twice cancer survivor. And when you want to tell certain stories about Ayurveda and you want to create a background and a certain fantasy element to that, because you want to
Right.
create an adventure. If you tell Ayurveda, people will say, ha, it's all oil, why do you want to talk about it? But when you put in a little girl there and you create an adventure for her, then you want to know about it. So I realized after being in the country for 15 years, talking to multiple publishers, they have their business model that works. But at the same time, there are some stories that won't fit into their business model. Like I wanted to take the stories of mangoes of India to the world, called Hapus. So I created a prince of mango, the sweetest mango, which is invaded and kind of taken away from the whole thing by the toxic, what do you call as a cowboy mango. So if you want to tell the cultural stories, sometimes to fit it in, it's very tough into the model of what is business as publishing. So I personally choose to kind of represent that and take these edutainment to the world for the next generations. And that's the reason I chose that.
Very interesting. Preeti, how involved are you as a publisher when, say, Applause is working on the stories? I'm sure they're probably sharing material with you. Yeah. So, I mean, how much of a role are you playing as a publisher in the adaptation?
Well, that was one of the prerequisites of the deal itself.
That you should not be involved at all?
That we want to be involved.
We
want to be involved, and it's a beautiful relationship, touch wood.
Touch wood.
So right from the start, see, the point is the catalog is very vast, right? So from the point of selection, what do you start with, right? Do you want to start with the magnum opus? Do you want to do the Mahabharata, or do you want to do other things? There are so many other things.
I would have picked Supandi, by the way, but...
Right, well, Supandi is part of Tinkle, and what they're doing is
Just
ACK.
joking, yeah.
No, that's fine. So one is, of course, selection. That's where we are involved in. Second is, so once you pick that series, then within the series, which story specifically to go with? What's a good way to tie up those stories together? They send us the scripts. So our editorial team is headed by Reena Puri. She's been with the company for 30 years.
Right.
She was hired and trained by Uncle Pai himself. So she's a living legend, in the industry, in the company. So we must use her expertise and talent. So she personally vets the scripts as well, makes suggestions. Even they've shown us a couple of pilots. And
these are for episodic series, I assume?
Sorry?
Are these episodic series?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we've been involved in all of that, but of course, we do respect and appreciate that, like Tahira is saying, it's a different medium. It's not our core expertise. We are very good at telling stories in the comic book format. That's what we do best. So we will, from an authenticity, credibility angle, we would love to be a part of it, but creatively, it's animation. It's a different format. We let them do their job best.
Right.
There are leaps you have to take, even in the comic book, between two panels. Right? You have to show the action between the two panels. I don't know how to do that, but they know how to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's mutual respect and
it's collaborative.
For each other's, for each other's, and I think the end result will turn out very good as a result of it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thank
Tahira, I have a question that I think many here will have, because we all face it, occasionally, very often. How do you deal with writer's block? How do you deal with that you can't write anymore and you're just staring at something, a blank screen?
Yeah, no, writer's block is a legit thing. It's so, I'm going through one right now. So I find ways, very honestly, I find ways to inspire myself. And that constant frustration is very important. And I let myself feel frustrated. And I let that frustration build up in me to the point that I'm seeking solutions and not becoming complacent about it. And so I have, over the years, developed many solutions. My latest solution, I'll tell you, was reading a book called The Artist's Way. And it has really helped me, that's what it is. You get inspired by different mediums. Now, I just finished writing a screenplay, which I might pitch soon. But that was courtesy of a book that I read. So every medium, coming back to the previous thing, every medium needs to be present, needs to be prevalent, because it inspires you so much. At times, music inspires you. At times, books inspire you. Recently, this book called Artist's Way, anybody who's a budding writer or a prolific writer, amateur, mature, whatever it is, it's a must. Please read that book. And there are two things that I learned from that. And I thought it's a secret that I'm not going to share, let people go through the hard task of reading the book. मैं क्यों बताऊँ shortcut, पर मैं बता ही देती हूँ इस panel पे आई हूँ तो.
हम लोग ने शिकारी शम्भू तो पिच कर ही लिया है वैसे.
हाँ, तो वो तो हो ही गया है. तो one thing that I learned was writing 3 pages every day with your hand on a notebook. And even at times, if nothing comes to your head and all that you want to write is, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, just write that. And I did that. You know, I can't curse right now because sir यहाँ पर है, government यहाँ पर है. तो but बहुत frustration ये भी लिखते होते कि because I'm going through a block and I don't know what to write. And I actually followed what the book said, that you do that. After 3 days, I had something more to write. After 5 days, I had a crazy character in my head. After 7, 8 days, I wanted to go into the character's life. And I don't know how and when from one character to the other, I just built a world for myself. Second tip that I learned from this book was go on an artist date. Now that date is a solo date that you go with yourself for anything. It could be a concert, it could be a walk on the grass, it could be by the beach. Allow yourself to be alone and consume art or something in some way. So that's a date that I also pledge to go to. In the book, it's written go once a week. It's a little tough being a mother of 2 and also directing and writing. It's too much to ask from a woman. But I managed to go on these artist dates at least twice a month. And even if I have an extra ticket, I will not give it to anyone. I will just go alone. So these are 2 tips that I recently learned and really helped me crack the writer's block. In the past, during pandemic, I think itna vela time tha that I just didn't know what to do. How much of husband and how much of children can you take and how much of jam sandwiches can you eat? I gained a lot of weight during the pandemic, but uske beyond kya karna hai? 24 ghante the. So then I started writing my book, which really got a great response. My publishers, Juggernaut, Chiki Sarkar. And so my book, The 12 Commandments of Being a Woman, was really well received. And then the second lockdown, and I again wrote another book. It's called The 7 Things of Being a Mother. Please vote kar do, meri stories par jaake. It's selected for a book fest. It's on the top 5. If you find me, I'm Tahira Kashyap. Go on to my stories and vote for me. Thank you. So yeah, these are the few tips that I have to share.
Husband से याद आया. Do you pitch your stories to your husband or no?
Husband कौन है यार? मेरे को तो नहीं पता.
हाँ, see. ऐसा होना चाहिए writer. How much time do we have? Sorry, I'll just. Sorry, yeah. So I have a 2-part question for you. Serious question. Part A is what was more difficult for you to write, the screenplay or the book?
Yeah.
And the second part is when you are also the director and the writer. If the writer is not doing the job properly, how do you fire the writer?
Yeah, so I don't fire myself. I hire myself. So the benefit of so even my recent film is also produced by applause only. And I think Sameer is a great person to collaborate, and he lets you be. And so the director in me has learned this, that let the writer be. And I let the writer part. Sun to le answer पूछा है तो
करना क्या?
Time क्या है? ये क्या हो रहा है? वो क्या हो रहा है? सुनो अब. No. So that's the only thing is I'm pretty much self-employed. I don't fire myself. I enjoy writing.
So I mean more actually in terms of like how do you do like rewrites? I mean actually.
It's very important. I think everybody can write a script, but a great script is when you undergo the rewriting process, and that's where a collaboration really helps. That's where producers' inputs, because you become so attached to your own project and your own interpretation of it, तुम्हें लगता है कि तुमने भगवान बना दिया है. But then the other person comes into the picture, and you have to have the humility to have respect for the other perspective, and that's when you understand I can improve. Only if you have humility will you grow in life, because no perspective is wrong. You've got to be inclusive.
Thank you. So very quickly, sir, Mr. Sahay, NFDC has funded so many films in the last so many years. And, it's been a great support system at a time when Bollywood was very, very commercial. And I just wanted to sort of pick your brain on going forward. I mean, how active will NFDC and the government be kind of in terms of supporting independent cinema? And is that on the agenda, not on the agenda? Any thoughts, comments, guidance for us?
I think it's quite clear that NFDC is here to promote films. Of course, we had the classics made of Mirch Masala and others, Jani Bido Yaro, all those
Absolutely.
movies. Of course, last few years they have not made any films. But one is to make films, one is to promote the making of films and encourage the youngsters, especially with the OTT coming in. You have a lot of, the true democratization of the film, of the entire filming world has taken place. And young script writers, young actors, now they can believe that they can actually be there, which was not possible 2 years back. Today it's possible. So definitely government, along with NFDC, would look at that as an opportunity to encourage all the young people, that huge talent which we have in this country. And the 75 Young Minds was just another demonstration of what we want to do, what we intend to do, of trying to encourage the youngsters from small places, maybe from villages, and let us use that talent and give them a platform of that kind which we're trying to give. So we are totally on that.
Thank you. Do we have time for a question from the audience, or should we wrap? So
we don't have time for questions, sorry for that, but all of you have been such an amazing panel. Thanks for taking your time out. And I think it's somewhere down the line, the support from the ministry that helps NFDC do a lot. And with all of you, all the way you all have, contributed into this thing in different ways is what will help us take it even further. And the reason we have this panel today is because our director, festival, Miss Leena Khobragade, she thought of this vertical as a, to bridge the gap between the books and the films that get made. We see it happening internationally, but in India, we were missing that link. So it was her initiative, and so this is our first edition of Book to Box Office, and that's why we have this lovely panel. And this wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for our 30 participants who came here as our, the publishers, the literary agents, the authors. So I would love to, we couldn't give them time to really speak because we're really out of time, but at least we could have a photo op of them with the panel. That would be amazing. So I would request, we'll call out the names and, we could have all of you line up at the foot of the stage and all of you could stand and we would have a lovely picture of them with you all.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
So from Amar Chitra Katha, we have no doubt Miss Preeti Vyas, and we also have Komal, if she is in the audience, please come up. Then we have Blue Rose Publishers, Mr. Syed Asad Hassan. Please do come up. And I think we'll have to, the panel will have to come forward and all the participants will have to come to the foot of the stage for getting a picture of everybody together. Yeah. We'll kind of just come up on this. Then we have Undercover Utopia, Mr. Abhigyan Jha. Please do come up. And we have an author, Ms. Mrinal Jha. Please come up. We're going to take a group picture. Please, everybody come up. We have Curing with Ms. Nenesha Dedia. Can you read out? I think it'll be nice if you can read out all the names. Introducing her, that's Kritika. She's been the coordinator for Book to Box Office, so she'll do this job better than me.
We have Mr. Arjun Chaudhary from Kyoto. We have Mr. Sidharth Jain as well from Story Inc. We have Alisha Verma and Ms. Renu Verma from Vitasta Publishing. We have Mr. Tekchandani from NCPSL, that is National Council for Sindhi Promotion. We have Mr. Arjun Jain, he's an author. Mr. Kling Johnson, White Falcon Publishing, Akshit Bagai and Ashish Kumar. We have Jayant Kumar Baloch from Fly Dreams Publishing and Mithilesh Kumar. Meeta Kapoor from Sahay, Sachin Uttam Karar and basically Orient Black Swan. Honestly, I'll just take the name of the publishing houses. I know who you all are. We don't have the time, sorry. Rajshri ma'am, Red Grab Books, Onindo, Tarun Sharma, Books That Inspire, Niyogi Books, Tree Shade Books, Lead Start, C4E, and Mr. Manish Tehan.
Did anyone, you missed out on some name, I believe. Please come up.
Very important National Book Trust, Mrs. Kanchan ma'am.
Okay. Devanisha, don't you think that was a better alignment? We should have Alina then and then. They keep missing. I know. So over to Monica for the next panel. We'll get her announcing on what's coming up next for all of you.